This is the Naked Mormon History Tour travel log, and I'm recording this on April 18th, 2017. It's been a long time since I've recorded one of these, but, I'm not even sure where to start. There's good reason for this. Once I hit New York on April 6th, I spent a few days there and attempted to record travel logs for that. But the drive back, I just basically didn't see any sights. I didn't go anywhere. I did spend evenings with a few people that were quite a pleasure to hang out with. First was my good friend Joel in Indiana. That was one of where I stayed as I was coming back from New York. Also with my friend Jonathan Tyndall of the Secular Stories podcast in Pennsylvania. He was quite hospitable, and it was really a pleasure to get to meet him in person. And we recorded a couple of episodes as well for his show, so be sure to check out the Secular Stories podcast feed. He just recently posted up the 2 episodes where we were having a conversation. And then after that, it was on to hang out with Joel. And then after that, I stayed in Missouri with somebody who requests to remain anonymous, but it was really a pleasure to meet that person and speak with them and go out and get some pizza, and I really enjoyed their company quite a lot. It was, this is one thing that I've come away from this tour with a broad understanding. People are just incredibly friendly and hospitable. And, it's this whole drive, this whole tour, I've been planning things pretty much as I go. I plan things about a week or 2 weeks in advance, which is, a little bit of a double-edged sword. It doesn't give much time for planning and for people to make allowances or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of chaotic, but it's kind of how I like to do things and how I've come to do things. And somehow it's all just been working out really well. And that's in a large part to just the general friendliness and the hospitality of people that have offered, people that have just, offered a couch or a guest room for me. And to all of those people, I cannot thank all of you enough. It's been so much fun to meet and spend time with all of these people as well. I've only had to really do a motel night and an Airbnb night a couple of times for this entire, 3.5, almost 4 weeks that I've been out now. And those nights have always been the nights that I've gotten the most work done. I've been able to post up things on the Facebook page, record travel logs and whatnot. But also they've kind of, I haven't been interacting with people. I spend the days out driving around and meeting people, missionaries and whatnot at these various historic sites. But, this is kind of one aspect that's really nice about, crashing on people's couches is I actually get to hang out with the people and talk to them and learn about them and learn their stories and, have interesting conversations with them. It's so much more fun to do it that way. It's so much more fun to meet friends that I've exchanged messages with in the past, or I've recorded a podcast with over Skype, but actually meeting them in person and having conversations with them. It's a whole different game. It's so amazing. And it really offers this window into the general humanity that people have, this general positivity. And it's something that I've been thinking a lot about while out and about here. But, of course, this is one reason why I haven't been recording these travel logs is because I haven't been seeing these Mormon historic sites. So I'm just kind of recording this one to catch everything up. There's I have so much to talk about now in the time since I recorded the last one of these. So this one, of the places that I have been, of Mormon historic sites, and the reason that I'm recording these travel logs, I stopped at winter quarters on April 12th on my way from Missouri to Colorado. And that was just amazing. Winter quarters was essentially where my grandpa was quartered for 4 years before him and Patience Delilah came out to Utah. And they lived for a little while in Ogden and went down to San Pete. That's where they died. And many of their children spread out from there, going up into Canada and proselyting and establishing Mormon strongholds up there. And, I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute, but about how I came to learn some more information about my grandpa and grandma that I never knew before. But at winter quarters, it was really cool because they have an amazing visitor center there, and it's full of a bunch of pioneer artifacts, a replica of Brigham Young's cane, just a bunch of really cool places, cool artifacts to see, as well as a map that they have, little LEDs that light up all of the settlements, all of these Mormon settlements. There were upwards of 100 settlements in Nebraska. Iowa. I'm mistaken. Where it's Winter Quarters, Iowa, and Council Bluffs, Iowa, and it's no. Now I'm even twice mistaken. It is Nebraska. So in Winter Quarters, Nebraska, just north of Omaha, but across all of this frontier place where they were butting up against the Native American settlements, the settlers there had over 100 settlements, and many of these were just, 1 or 2 log cabins of homes where families were living, but others were, large metropolises, sprawling civilizations with mercantile businesses and schoolyards and churches. Council Bluffs was actually, huge. And Winter Quarters was the largest settlement with nearly 4,000 people in 1850, when at the height of its, the precipice of the time before the Saints really moved en masse out to Utah in the following years after that. So that was just really cool to see where my grandpa was working, where he lived for, I keep saying he, but where all of my ancestors lived, where my grandpa lived with his 3 wives, in Nebraska there before they made the trip out in 1852. It was really cool. It brought all of this to light. So after that, I spent a few days in Colorado. I wasn't really doing anything these times. I was just working, posting up things on Facebook, and getting some work done, some other work done that's very much pressing that I haven't been able to do out here. And now I'm in Utah. And I'm at the end of my stay in Utah, and I just wanted to wrap up all of the Utah days all into one kind of big shebang. So when I got here, that was back on the 14th, I believe it was. And I've been here, the 5 days up until the 18th here. I'm leaving the 19th. And that's when I'll head down to St. George and hopefully record a video at Mountain Meadows Massacre. The site there just by, kind of by Cedar City. Utah is jam-packed full of Mormon history. The first day that I was here, I just went around Temple Square and the Mormon History Museum, the Pioneer Museum, all of these living museums that they have around here. And it's the first time that I ever went through Temple Square at this level of understanding of Mormon history. So Temple Square is where the Salt Lake City Temple is, for anybody who hasn't been there or doesn't know. But they also have like the old conference center there. They have a Masonic hall. They have all kinds of buildings in this massive, 4-city block large chunk of land. And that's just where like the church was the beginning headquarters of the church was located. Since then they have other buildings that they've constructed. The tallest skyscraper in Utah is the church office building, and they have various buildings all around the area. But Temple Square is kind of where it all began, and the Salt Lake Temple there is fascinating. It's beautiful. It's the most iconic temple of any Mormon temples. You know, the 6 spires with the 2 in the middle that are raised up taller, the one with the angel Moroni. This was the first temple that ever had an angel Moroni placed on top of it. It was dedicated in 1853 by Brigham Young. The place was dedicated, or the land plot, but it was actually completed in 1893. You know, like 15 years after Brigham Young died. It took him 40 years to build that temple. You know, it's all this quarried granite from, I don't know where they pulled the quarry, the rock from. And it's just a massive, beautiful building, you know, great and spacious building, one might say. But the whole Temple Square area is beautiful and it's well tended. They have many international sister missionaries there that will stop and speak with you. The first missionaries I spoke with, one was from Hong Kong, the other from Russia. And I spoke with them for about 45 minutes talking about just church and the Doctrine and Covenants. And, you know, they challenged me to read the Book of Mormon and read the Doctrine and Covenants and pray. And I challenged them to read the Doctrine and Covenants cover to cover because they hadn't, and to use the church's history resources and research the people's names as they come up, you know, find out who they are, because it's a living history. You know, that's what the Doctrine and Covenants were. So, you know, the Temple Square was really cool. And then after that, I went to the Pioneer History Museum, where it's just that, where they go through what the pioneers went through, and they have a bunch of artifacts there of what pioneers had, anything from dressers and chairs all the way up to wagons. And I mean, it's incredible. Just the number of artifacts that the church has in its possession is just amazing under all these lock boxes. There's an original 1830 Book of Mormon in one of the cases there. And, you know, anytime I see one of those, you know, it's a single book that's worth, you know, $80,000. You know, you can't help but take notice and say, wow, that's amazing. So that was really cool to see. And then after that, I ended the day trying to go to the Daughters of Zion Museum, but unfortunately they close at 5. I got there at 5:01. So that was kind of a bummer. And then let's see, the following day, I'm trying to remember exactly what I did. This is the mistake of just spending all day driving to different places and viewing these things, and not being able to sit down and record travel logs, because I don't remember exactly what I did. But it's literally been, you know, I wake up in the morning and go to all of these places, and then I get home late at night, you know, where I'm staying, what I call home right now. So, I mean, there's just simply hasn't been time to record these travel logs as I've gone along. But, you know, I guess I'll walk back to the 16th, and that was, oh God, that was, no. Let me tell you about the 15th on Saturday. That was when I went to Gilgal Gardens, and that was with Joey and Andrew of the Pulpit Podcast, as well as with Julie, the real Emma Hale on Twitter. And we just went through this crazy garden, and it was made by this guy, Thomas Child Jr. He began it in 1945 and completed it, well, I don't know if he completed it, but he died in 1963 and worked up until the day he died, essentially. But this place is amazing. It's an entire sculpture garden this guy made for 18 years of his life, nearly. And when we first got there, we walked through it and we were kind of just playing around and enjoying, just looking at the various sculptures. And, you know, we were about to leave, and I just kept looking around and getting this weird feeling like there's just something to this place. So at that point I said, all right, everybody, we're going to record a 360 video of this place, and we're not going to add commentary. We're just going to describe everything that we see. And that's what we did. We just walked through the garden, and it took us an hour to get through. We read every single stone that we saw placed into the ground. We read everything that was on it. Some of the stones weren't very legible, and we just kind of had to try and parse through what was there. And, you know, like feel the words with our hands, because some of the stones are more worn down than others. But we just went through the whole garden. And, you know, at a couple of points, Joey and I were both trying to say, well, maybe this means something. And, you know, we just had to step back and say, no. We can't speculate or theorize what any of this means. We just have to describe what we're seeing. We're just documenting what this place is. We'll leave it up to the internet to take the video and run with it and draw all kinds of conclusions, because it's just baffling. But yeah, so that was we went through it 2 times in, an hour and a half's time, and an hour of that was recording video of what we were seeing. It's an incredible place, and it's right here in downtown Salt Lake, 750 East, 500 South in Salt Lake. Anybody can come see it. So the gardens were really, really cool. The next day after that was Sunday, the 16th, and I got in touch with this guy named Christopher Nemelka. Some of you may have heard his name before. I heard it a long time ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, when I was, beginning my research into Mormon history, essentially. And this guy claims to, at one time, he claimed to be the reincarnation of Hiram Smith. He translated the quote-unquote sealed portion of the Book of Mormon. And, I don't know what to make of the guy. We did a live interview on his live stream show. It's called Marvelous Work and a Wonder. You can find it on that Facebook page, or it's posted up and rebroadcasted on my Facebook page, as well as the Naked Mormonism Facebook page there. It's posted up on YouTube. You can find it. But this guy is, I don't know what to make of him. Man, he is something special. I don't know what to think about it, but the comment section really, we had a 2.5 hour discussion, and the comment section really sussed out, I think, a lot of the inner workings of our conversation. We would say things, and then people in the comment section would kind of chase those things to their conclusion, or have the deeper discussion amongst themselves while Chris and I were going on talking about other things. But I've come to conclusions based off of the conversation. He is a charlatan and a liar, and I say those things, I parrot those things only because he said them first and he owns up to them. And I think he's incredibly dishonest and disingenuous, and I will leave it up to you to watch the 2.5 hour conversation to draw your own conclusions about exactly what Christopher Nemelka is. But, yeah, I'll the next travel log, I'll describe what I'm doing today, because I think that might enlighten me a little bit more as to what this guy does and some of the damage that he's done and some of the lives that he may have ruined based on this following that he's created over the past, 13 or 14 years. I don't know what to make of the guy. Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know. So that was on Sunday. Yesterday, Monday, the 17th. I'm trying to think of what I did. Okay, so I finally made it to the Daughters of Zion Museum yesterday. And wow, that was by far the coolest of all of the museums that I have been to on this whole trip. Hands down, the absolute coolest, for a couple of reasons. So you walk in, and it's not actually staffed by the church. It's staffed by the Daughters of Zion Committee. Now, they have missionaries that are working there, but those missionaries are just digitizing all of their records. So they're taking pictures and taking old documents and letters and scanning them into the computer and then posting them up to Ancestry.com. So the church is using this missionary labor force in order to appropriate all of this information and put it behind a paywall. I have some conflicting ideas about that, but they are digitizing all of the information for generations to come. So it's a worthwhile endeavor. I just wish that they wouldn't put it all behind a paywall. That being said, the museum was amazing. It is 3 floors completely and a basement just chocked full of Mormon pioneer artifacts. There are a number of pianos that they have in there that made their way across. There's one iconic piano. It's up on the 2nd floor, and there's a plaque on it that describes the story. But essentially, the pioneer trek that brought this piano across, it was one of these box pianos. So they take the legs off, and it's a portable piano, and it's good to move. But when they got to Wyoming, they couldn't they couldn't get it the rest of the way back because of, I believe it was just logistical constraints. So they buried the piano underground. They literally just buried it in like a dirt sarcophagus. And then they came back and re-earthed it a number of decades later, and they brought it the rest of the way to Utah, and now it remains in that museum. This piano that has an amazing story that spent a number of years underground is just sitting there in perfect condition. I mean, it's incredible. But they have everything from housewares to dresses to spoons to chairs to full exhibits that are donated by just one family, and it's a whole bedroom of furniture that's set up that were owned by these pioneers, and all of it's just donated pieces to this museum. And then in the basement, they have a gun room and a carriage house and even a fire engine, an old I think it's an 1890s fire engine, horse-drawn fire engine. And it's just shiny and chrome and bright red. And it's just amazing. This museum is just baffling. If anybody living in Salt Lake or in Salt Lake at any time has a chance to go to any church site or any Mormon history site, go to the Daughters of Zion Museum. It's just incredible. Free entry. You just walk in, walk around, and look at all these places. But of course, they have a history department there, which I was stoked about. So I had them pull my grandpa's file, Abraham Whitney Palmer, and there was a 40-page typescript of his history, and I think it was done by my immediate grandma. I posted up an episode about, in July, and it was interesting. I just read through his entire history. My family was camped out just south of Haun's Mill, on Shoal Creek when the massacre happened. They fled to Nauvoo. My grandpa was inducted as a high priest and a master mason in Nauvoo. I learned just a ton about my grandpa and grandma and their perspectives of everything as they were going. I learned the names of his other wives, which I hadn't known before. Ann Bedford, I believe, or Ann Allen. She was named Ann Bedford and Allen. I'm not sure if one of those were her first married name or what the case was. And then Catherine Hill was the other wife. He had 3 wives, at the time that he died. And 17 kids, I think it was. Yeah, it had all of their genealogy, all of the names. And, my grandpa was, he was an insider. He was one of those Mormon noblemen, one of the Mormon elites in Nauvoo and in Utah, an incredible guy. And Patience Delilah, an incredible woman. But what was cool is this was the Daughters of Zion. So they definitely have an emphasis on the women's role in the entire pioneer movement. And I found out that Patience Delilah Palmer, when she married Abraham Palmer, was a doctor, a midwife and doctor when she came out here to Utah. And they have a separate doctor's room in this Daughters of Zion museum. And they actually have a picture on the wall of my grandma. My great third or fourth great grandma, her picture is on a wall in this Daughters of Zion museum. I couldn't believe it. It was a picture from maybe the 1870s, I want to say, or maybe, mid to late 1870s. And it's her. It's my grandma. And I went down to the historical department and they printed off a couple of the pages of my grandma and grandpa's history that I took home with me, 25 cents a copy. That's totally all right. And then they gave me a copy of her picture on a CD for $5. I actually have a picture of my great-great-great-grandma who lived here, who came across the plains, who was a doctor when she lived here in Utah. I can't believe it. It was so cool. It was just amazing. And it just brought this whole history to life. You know, my grandma is a museum piece. That's what's so cool about this whole history tour is, you know, what a great way to put a cap on everything that I've seen for the past 3 weeks. You know, I've gone to all of these historic sites, and now I finally see where my ancestors were living when they came across the plains, when they lived in Utah. You know, I know where they lived. I studied the experiences that they went through. You know, I learned about William Moroni's eyesight problem when he was young, and they were crossing the plains. He had, the wagon train had rampant, problem, a breakout of pink eye, and a doctor there that was a member of the pioneer train that the Palmer family was crossing with used a sulfur phosphate, solution on William Moroni's eyes to try and get rid of the pink eye infection, and it blinded him. So then he got a blessing from Heber C. Kimball, and supposedly he gained his eyesight back after that. But he would have to read his Bible, you know, inches from his face because his eyesight was so poor. But, you know, the whole thing is just incredible. You know, the whole story of the Palmer family and everything that they went through. It's stunning. Wow. Wow. I don't know what to make of it, but it really brought the history to life. You know, it brought it out in relief. I could feel it and touch it and see these things and see all of these amazing artifacts that, you know, made their way across the plains in wagons. You know, the people, I saw the silverware that people were eating off of 140 years ago when they came across the plains. Just wow. You know, Utah is packed full of these historic sites. And, you know, I do apologize to everybody out there for not getting up one of these travel logs sooner. But like I said, each one of my days has just been just constantly running, constantly driving from places to places, constantly meeting with people. There simply hasn't been enough time to sit down in a somewhat quiet place. Even right now, I'm parked outside of the Salt Lake City Library with cars buzzing past me, sitting in my car recording this. That's the extra background noise you're hearing right now. You know, there just hasn't been enough time to get these things posted, but hopefully this kind of brings everybody up to speed with what's going on right now. And then tonight, I'm recording beginning at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That is, tonight is the April 18th, Tuesday. I'm meeting with Sean McCraney, who is host of Heart of the Matter TV show. He was the first media source that got me interested in Mormon history, that fateful day 4.5 years ago. And, you know, here I am 4.5 years later, finally meeting him in person. I'm going to have lunch with him and record an episode for my podcast. And then we'll be meeting at 8 o'clock tonight at his studio here in Murray to talk about Mormon history, to talk about all kinds of stuff. I'm not sure what to expect. There's even going to be a live call-in number. I don't know if we'll field any phone calls. It'd be fun if we did, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, to Heart of the Matter. It's going to be on HOTM.TV. That's the URL for it. And it will be rebroadcasted to Facebook and YouTube. And I'll try and live stream it on my Facebook page as it's being streamed. My brain is just mush. I don't even know where to go or what to do now in this little interim period until I meet with Sean. I'll try and get this episode posted up. But yeah, once again, I'm sorry that I haven't gotten these up more faithfully. And I just thank you all for your patience in waiting for this travel log that wraps up the past, few days to come out. I've spent a lot of time in the cab of this car driving. The country is really big. Here, let me look. I just filled up my car and, I just hit 10,003.6 miles for the entire journey. And that was just in my driving from the gardens or from where I'm staying up here to Salt Lake. I just ticked over the 10,000 mile mark. Spent a lot of hours in this car. I'm looking forward to wrapping this tour up, and then of course to ReasonCon. I'm flying straight out from Las Vegas to ReasonCon in North Carolina, and I really hope to see some of you there. This is kind of that time when this yearly or bi-yearly conference, I should say, where we all can get together and hang out in person. And Marie Kent from My Book of Mormon podcast, my co-host, is going to be there, as is Joel Kuhn, my friend from Indiana, who does the website, the D&C comparison website, and just a bunch of atheist and skeptical podcasters are going to be there. It's gonna, this is one conference I've been looking forward to for over a year since they announced it. So here we are. It's less than a week away. I get to see Marie again. I get to see a bunch of my friends again. And it's great. It really is great. This is, all in all, this has been an incredibly fruitful endeavor. And I'm trying not to, wrap up my ending thoughts too much in this and, my overall take on the trip, but it's kind of hard not to reflect back on what this last 3 weeks has held. It's been an incredible experience. God, I left March 17th. Today is April 18th. It's been officially a month since I disembarked from Seattle and began this trip. And wow, like I said, my brain is just mush. I don't know what to think about all of this. But yeah, if I don't stop this recording, you're not going to listen because I'm just babbling and rambling, and I'm not going to have enough time to post it up before I meet with Sean. So I will let you go, but thanks for listening in.